Ladybeard! Welcome, podcast kittens. It's Cathy Cat and...
Ladybeard coming at you with yet another mind-ruining installment of Cat with Beard! Should have said mind-ruining. I was going to pick a different verb, but I couldn't think of one in the heat of the moment.
Well, we've been ruining the camera and the floor with beans in the last episode.
Yeah, there were beans everywhere. We can't move our chairs because there's beans everywhere.
Everywhere. But we found out about Ladybeard and the Babybeard story.
Yes.
The Babybeard legacy, starting off tough time in school. But now you're about 16. You have now your first black belt in martial arts.
It's good.
So what happened then?
So get out of high school, then I go to university, which was drama school in my case, because I went through acting school. So go through that the whole time. I'm training various martial arts the whole time. So here's what happened, right? I get out of acting school, gonna be an actor. In high school, my original dream was to be a heavy metal singer, but I couldn't scream. So there goes that dream, right? Okay, so all right.
Oh, you can do that now, right?
I can do that now. We'll get to that part of the story. But so be an actor, because that's, really the only thing I thought I could do, and not just hate every moment of life, is the only thing I had any talent in, the only thing I was any good at, the only thing that made me not go, oh my lord, I hate this so much.
Martial art and drama.
Yeah, exactly. But martial arts, there's not, unless you're going to be a professional fighter or an instructor, there's not much of a career to have there, right?
Fair enough.
I'm not good enough to be a fighter. If you're an instructor, then it's not about the martial arts, it's about teaching. So that's a different thing, right? Yeah.
And then you have to deal with them little kids again.
Well, or whoever you're teaching, but it's not about, it's not about your training anymore. It's about teaching other people.
Other people's trainings, yeah.
So that's a different skill set, So performing was the only thing I thought I could do and not just hate life. So I'm like, all right, going to do that. Now, all right, so in Australia, this is back before we had a lot of internet. It's back on the days of TV and so forth. So. There was, when I had been growing up, there had been a law in Australia that on our broadcasters, 30% of all the content on a broadcaster had to be Australian produced, right?
Oh, okay.
So that protected the Australian industry, right? Now, in 2003, they signed some fair trade agreement, which abolished that law.
Okay.
So that was 2003. So now, for all the broadcasters, it was much cheaper and easier to just buy content from the US and the UK than it was to produce it.
Pre-made, and you don't have
to make
it.
So much easier and cheaper and faster, right? That happened in 2003. I finished acting school in 2004.
Oh.
So
suddenly the career goal was not...
Off I go into a career which is already super competitive and there's not very many jobs. And now there's really no jobs in Australia. So it really was something. Like, I got out of acting school and everyone was like, there's not much going on. Occasionally, it was like someone who was a professional actor might do a commercial once a year. We had like 2 soap operas, and then the regular cast for that were constantly employed. There was some, theatre stuff sometimes, a handful of movies, but there was just no jobs, right?
I just remember, I loved watching Australian TV shows
You would
as
have watched
a kid.
Neighbours, yeah? Neighbours.
No, Ocean Girl was one of them.
Oh, Ocean Girl!
I loved Ocean Girl.
No joke, really?
Yeah, they played that in Germany on Nickelodeon.
Really?
Yeah.
Ocean Girl, it's about a girl who swims and is friends with a dolphin
mermaid,
or something.
I think. She's an ex-mermaid or something. Something like that. I don't remember that clearly
Aussie
anymore.
show. We have a lot of
Ocean
water.
Girl.
We're a big island.
Yeah, but a couple of kids shows that were really good, the Australian ones.
Yeah, we had some good stuff. But that was back when it was mandated that they had to protect our industry. But then
Alex
they didn't
Mack
anymore.
from Australia too?
I'm sorry?
Alex Mack? What happened to him?
Alex Mack?
This is like a girl who had superpowers.
I remember Alex Mack. I can't remember where she's from. She might be Aussie.
Maybe.
Put a comment in the YouTube, friends,
please,
if you know
Alex
Mack.
Please comment, if you know
Aussie
that
or
one.
not.
So there were a couple of cool shows, but it said probably by the time you graduated, all that production in Australia, they stopped. They just got stuff from abroad.
Pretty much.
Pre-made.
Pretty much. So I get out of it. All right, so I moved from Adelaide to Melbourne to go get an acting agent there, go to be an actor. Audition. No jobs. I remember auditioning for a role in this movie and then seeing a year or 2 years later when the movie came out, the guy who got the role was like an Aussie celebrity. So I'm like, I'm a school leaver auditioning against celebrities. There's no way. There's no way, right? So, all right. But so what I was also doing in Melbourne, though, was I was training in Hong Kong style cinematic action with this Aussie who had spent 9 years on the Jackie Chan stunt team. Right?
Okay, so how did you get into that?
So, one of my mates from drama school during drama school, he had done an exchange, kind of university exchange thing when he went to Shanghai, did some theater stuff there. He then went to Hong Kong just for a holiday. He's rocking around Hong Kong. He recognized an old English actor who had been in an old Bruce Lee film on the street.
Wow.
And said, can we hang out, tell me stories about Bruce and whatnot? The guy said yes. He said, introduced him to other contacts and whatnot. So he got some contacts and he met this dude who was this Aussie who'd been on the Jackie Chan stunt team. So then he introduced him to me. So when we were at the end of drama school, I met him. When we were on our showcase tour, which is when we went to Sydney and Melbourne, and we performed for all the acting agents in the country, and then, if they picked the actors that they liked. He came to our showcase in Melbourne, and I had a little martial arts bit in there. On the same tour, I went out and I kind of auditioned for his team.
Oh.
He said, yep, I'll have you on my team. If you move to Melbourne, I'll have you on my team. So I got my agent in Melbourne too, so it was a clear choice to move to Melbourne. So whilst I was in Melbourne doing awful day jobs and auditioning and getting rejected from acting roles, I was also training with this guy. So what happened was, I did an audition for something. I remember at the audition after my first take, they said, that was perfect. And then I still didn't get the job. So I remember I'm there at his house one night after training, complaining to him. I'm going, how can it be perfect and you still don't get the job? That's absurd. What am I supposed to do? He said, you know what you should do? You should move to Hong Kong. Because you go to Hong Kong, because you're a minority in Hong Kong, your pool of competition is so much smaller. He said, you've got the skills, you learn quickly. I trained with him for a year, so and he taught me through a lot of the Hong Kong kind of stuff. So he said, here's what you should do. You should go to and this is very interesting. This happened as well. I did an audition for an Aussie TV show, which everyone in my state knows. It's called McLeod's Daughters, and like everyone in Adelaide who has ever done anything to do with acting has been on the show, except for me. So I had my audition for this McLeod's Daughters. The casting agent for this show, I'm so grateful to this woman because no one before or since has ever done this for me. After the audition, she called me and gave me feedback. And she's like, we can see that you're good. We can see that you're well-trained and you're fit and you're all those wonderful things. Problem is you don't have any experience. So she said, no, you need to get yourself some experience. And then from our perspective, you'll be employable. And now she even said, we understand this is a catch-22 because how do you get experience if people like us don't give you experience? But that's our feedback for you. Take it and do with it as you will. So this trainer who I was working with, he was like, you go to Hong Kong. You're a minority, so your pool of competition is much smaller. You can go there, just stay there for a few months, do some bits and pieces and some movies and TV, get experience, then come back to Australia, you'll be more employable. So that was always the plan. I was going to go for 3 months and then come back, just try and do a couple of movies and whatnot. I went there. There was so much more opportunity for me there than was at home that I ended up staying in Hong Kong for 6 years.
All right, so that's how it all
That's
ties
how it all
together.
happened.
That's how you ended up in Hong Kong.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So you arrive in Hong Kong. Now the new chapter, the new Ladybeard chapter opens. You are in Hong Kong. Bam. Probably very different from Adelaide.
Very, very different from Adelaide. It was a difficult move. I was there totally by myself. So it was moved over. It was like my first place I lived in. I had like a homeless man and rats right outside my apartment. It was awful, right?
Well, I hope the rats were also outside the apartment.
They were for the most part.
Oh, God.
Yeah. So it was a rough move.
Oof.
It was a rough move. But, it took about 6 months to kind of emotionally figure it out. But I figured it out. Sorted out a life in Hong Kong. Things are going great in Hong Kong. Went very well there for a while. And then we had that 2008 financial crisis, and that ruined everything.
So everything was going well. You might have stayed in Shanghai, but the crisis happened. How does that affect you?
Well, okay, yeah. So I was in Hong Kong for a bit. Went to the Philippines for a bit, did stuff there. Back to Hong Kong, doing a bunch of stuff in Hong Kong. It was awesome. Crisis happened, and it was it was pretty awful, actually, because I was, I think, 25. And I was like, wow, I actually did it. I'm actually a full-time actor, as in that's how I make my living.
Yeah, you finally reached the goal, right?
I was so happy. I'm like, that's, a lot of people who, my mates and whatnot, they would call themselves actors, but really they were bartenders who did a commercial once a year, right? But it was my full-time job. That's how I made my living. I was so happy about it, right? And then this financial crisis happens, and just overnight, I'm not an actor anymore. It's just gone.
Oh, man.
So it was so strange because I remember whatever day the crisis happened, of course, there's a difference in the time between America and Hong Kong. And so I get an email from my boss after work, and it's like something like, all the projects have been postponed indefinitely. Oof. And then we see him a few days later in the office, and he's like, yeah, because I was dubbing anime into English mainly at the time. He's like, yeah, every sector's been affected by this financial crash. We don't know what's going to happen. So if you can find other ways to make income, do it. And I'm like, what? I remember being so confused. I remember going, hang on, stop, and trying to understand the financial crisis. And I'm going, so you're telling me a bunch of bank people in America gave loans to people who couldn't pay them back, and then Iceland defaulted on its national debt, and now I, as a young actor and stuntman in Hong Kong, am unemployed. I'm like, what are you talking about? I was so confused, right? But anyway, it happened. And for a little while, it was kind of like, all right, well, I guess we're just hanging out until this all sorts itself out, because we thought it was going to sort itself out. And then it didn't. So it's kind of, like 1 month goes by and just kind of living off savings. You're like, all right. 3 months goes by. You're like, all right, it's starting to get a little bit concerning, but okay. A year goes by. You're like, what the hell is going on, right? So I was like, all right, look, this, whatever was in Hong Kong for me is not here anymore. So I got to figure something out. All right, so now at home, things are even worse than they were at home after the financial crisis. Now there's really no work, right? So I'm like, all right, well, there's nothing going on in Hong Kong anymore. There's really nothing going on at home anymore. At least in Hong Kong, I have the minority factor. So when there is an opportunity, I don't have much competition, right? So I'm like, all right. But there wasn't really enough work to sustain anything. So I'm like, okay, so what am I going to do now? So I went through I went through a lot of kind of soul searching and long walks of thinking about what the hell I'm going to do.
It sounds like it's another Ladybeard training montage there.
Well, yeah, exactly. It was much slower. It was slower and more tragic. And also, in the midst of all of it, I had a really awful health problem, which I didn't have private health insurance in Hong Kong.
Oh gosh, yeah.
And of course, it's I don't think I was like... I don't think I got any kind of government health insurance or anything. So I just went, whoa, I just won't treat it. So therefore I was, had an awful health situation. I'm not going to go into details, but it was pretty awful, right?
So you're battling on different fronts all over
again. It was awful. So I was in a lot of pain and I was like, what am I going to do? And so, then randomly during this time, I was had a bunch of experiences and, a bunch of experiences. I went cross-dressing for the first time in Hong Kong prior to the financial crisis. And because it's such a conservative society, compared with when I just worn a dress and it was really funny at home, now in Hong Kong, because they are so conservative, they're like, wow! It was mind-blowing for them.
So
right?
was that like a kind of fun war? Or more of a no-thank war?
No, a very, very fun war.
Good.
Provided it was in the right context and environment, right? They would be like, you're the craziest, the most funny, you're the most amazing person I've ever seen. And I was like, it's not that amazing. Just put on a dress. It's just a stupid, funny thing. They're like, no, it's amazing. So I'm like, okay.
So you started, the cross-dressing started in Hong Kong?
Well, no, I'd been cross-dressing since I was 14 because I wore my sister's school dress to a friend's birthday party once and it was really funny. And so I just casually at, concerts and parties and whatnot, all throughout high school and university and whatnot, I'd had a series of dresses that I wore sometimes, and it was just funny. Okay. But then in Hong Kong, in
Hong Kong, it became like a thing.
In Hong Kong, it became a thing because it was the first night I did it was at this big international rock and roll show, and I got so much positive attention. It was remarkable, and I was like, this is something else. So when things fell apart from a career perspective, I was like, all right, well. They all seem to really love when I wear a dress here. So maybe there's something that can be somehow done with that somehow. And so I was trying to figure out somehow some of that will work.
Combining, I mean, like you combined first the martial arts, you combined that with acting.
Yep.
And now you were thinking of how can I combine that with cross-dressing?
Yeah, pretty much. And not necessarily because I was like, I love cross-dressing and I want to be a cross-dresser full time. I was just trying to figure something out, right? And so... yeah, then at a heavy metal show, I randomly saw this kid wearing a T-shirt that said Hong Kong Pro Wrestling Federation. And I spoke to him about it, and he's like, yeah, I'm a wrestler. We have a wrestling fed. Do you want to come to training? I was like, yeah, okay, because I was always interested in pro wrestling.
Oh, okay.
But in Adelaide, the gyms were all miles away, so I never had access to them, right? So I go to this wrestling club. Because of my martial arts and stunt background, I got the physical stuff relatively quickly. And Wasn't long after that it was like, okay, cool, now you're going to have a match. We're doing a show, you're going to have a match. Okay, cool. All right, what do you want your gimmick to be? And I said, yeah, what do you want your in-ring character
gimmick,
to be? Yeah, what character do you want to have? And I was like, everyone else in the club, they were all these Hong Kong boys, and every one of them had the same gimmick. I am a wrestler. That was their gimmick.
Oh,
right?
okay.
So I'm like, okay, all right. I'm like, all right, what do I want my gimmick to be? I said, I think I want to try this. I'm going to put on a dress, and I'm going to put my hair in these little pigtails. I had short hair at the time, so I just had like little pigtails, sort of like spikes all over my head. And I said, I'm going to be called Ladybeard. And they were like, okay.
Oh,
They
we're
were like-
witnessing the birth of Ladybeard.
They're like, that's the most ridiculous thing I ever heard. But, it's, I'm like, nah, we'll be good. We'll do, do a comedy match, and we'll do man in skirt humor, and also foreigner speaks bad Cantonese humor, and it'll, And so I went in, and I was planning to be a heel. So heels of the bad guys in wrestling matches, right? I'm like, yeah, Ladybeard with this heel. Everyone will hate me. It'll look like we're in a skirt. Everyone will hate it. Bad Cantonese. Go in there. First match, they loved it. Loved it. Overnight, most popular wrestler in Hong Kong.
What?
Yeah.
No way.
I was like, oh my
awesome.
God. Someone else made my first ever Facebook page for me. Like after that first match, someone was like, why is there no Ladybook fan page? And they made a Ladybeard fan page for me.
Oh.
Yeah. And I'm like, oh my God, okay. Well, perhaps I found the solution to my problems. And we went from there.
That's the birth of Ladybeard.
That's the official birth of Ladybeard, yeah.
Official birth of Ladybeard. So was that during, after, or before the whole shock crisis?
It was after the financial crisis. So, so the financial crisis happened, the back end of 2008? So that would have been 2009.
So you found something after the long walks trying to find yourself. The only thing you had to find was Ladybeard.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. That was beautiful. That was another motivational quote for your YouTube Shorts channel.
Yes, find the Ladybeard within yourself.
And
you found the Ladybeard. What happened then?
That was a very deep, serious talk. Wasn't that the most
really
serious
deep,
and stone-faced I've ever been on this podcast? I apologize to anyone listening.
Serious, but I find it really interesting.
It's very interesting, right? Because Ladybeard, the whole thing is very kind of like kawaii, and it's all about making other people happy and so forth. But it's actually birthed from absolute
work, dedication,
and just
overcoming struggles.
Pain. It was birthed through pain, through losing, my career, losing everything, having this awful health problem. I didn't have the money to fix it.
It seems like you were a phoenix. You kind of burned, but then you came back.
Well, thank you. Hope so.
There you go. That's sometimes the toughest times shape us into the best Ladybeards that we can be.
Well, the toughest times definitely shape you into something, don't they? Whether they destroy you or they forge you, definitely they do.
That's
something,
the point.
Something to you.
So you started Ladybeard. You were still in Hong Kong.
Yeah.
How do you come to Japan then?
Started Ladybeard. Started the wrestling. That goes really well. Okay. I had this music project I wanted to do, singing heavy metal covers of Cantonese pop songs. So all right. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do that as Ladybeard, that I can bring my fan base from the wrestling over to the music stuff. And I can mix and match the two so I can sing in the ring and do all this kind of stuff.
You're coming back to your original dream that you had in teenage years of being in a metal band.
Yes, because interestingly, back when I was dubbing before the financial crisis, I couldn't scream, but then dubbing taught me how to scream. From dubbing monsters or doing monster voices like this taught me how to scream, right? So once I could do that, I was like, oh my God, I can scream. Yay, I can do my heavy metal dream. So I went and started singing in bands and whatnot in Hong Kong and so forth. So I had this heavy metal project I want to do. I said, I'm going to do this as Ladybeard, bring the same fan base with me. And did that, started that in Hong Kong. That went well. Wasn't long after that, so that was 2010, I think I started that. Not long after that, I toured to Taiwan. I said, because we had an opportunity to wrestle in Taiwan. So I said, okay, cool. So I'll learn a bunch of Mandarin songs and I'll go and do a music tour as well as the wrestling show. Did that in Taiwan. And then one of the things that gave me the confidence to try Ladybeard in the first place, because one of the things I got told by people in Hong Kong, people in show business in Hong Kong, they're like, a lot of people recommended I didn't try this Ladybeard thing. Because they're like, you'll always be, in the minds of casting people, you'll always be that dude who put on the dress. And regardless of what else happens, you'll be the dude in the dress and be like, well, we can't give him the job because he's the dude who put on the dress. And there won't be any proper logic behind it, apart from that where he put on a dress once, so we can't employ him, right? So it was recommended that I didn't try it, and I was like, well, really, yeah, but they're not employing me anyway, so I may as well try, right? So, but a part of what gave me the confidence to do it was like, all right, doing this in Hong Kong, I could get to Taiwan relatively easily. If I can't get something properly going on here, well, screw it, man. I know I can always move to Japan because they're bonkers over there. They love insane things. So basically I did. Hong Kong did the Taiwan tour. That kind of I figured out how to do a tour. I got back and I went, all right, I'm going to do a Japan tour. So I learned a bunch of Japanese songs. I couldn't speak Japanese at the time, just learnt songs phonetically and learnt my, talking in between songs, learnt that phonetically too. Booked a tour, which was very hard when you don't speak Japanese and don't know anyone and don't know anything about the country.
Connections and stuff.
That was very hard, but I figured it out. Came to Japan 2011 or something. Had this, little tour that I'd organized by myself. And whilst I didn't have big audiences or anything at any of these shows, the Japanese people who were there all loved the show. So it's, me in pigtails and a skirt, and I'd sing heavy metal covers of Japanese pop songs. So it'd start out all cute and everything, and then I'd start screaming, and they found it really funny, hilarious. So did that, went really well. The last show was on Okinawa, and my mate in Okinawa, who had booked me the show, he's driving me to the airport, I think, and he goes, all right, so what's the plan? And I'm like, I think I'm gonna move to Tokyo and do Ladybeard full time. Yeah. So I made that decision right after the first ever Japan tour. I was still in Japan when I made the decision. So I had to go back to Hong Kong, had to, organize everything to leave there. Let's go back to Australia, spend some time there, and then I came over to Japan.
And so the Ladybeard came to Japan. I like, what you're saying, that these people were like, you shouldn't be doing it because people will always remember you as the guy who puts on the dress. I like the spin of, yes, people will always remember you as the guy who puts on the dress. Like, the negative has now turned to such a positive that has made your name and your legacy that it's almost impossible to think of Ladybeard as not Ladybeard.
Yeah. And this is something interesting that happened as well. So just to clarify, everyone listening, we live in a different time now from what we lived in back then.
Yeah.
This is before any of the Caitlyn Jenner and any of the transgender type stuff we've had over the past 10 years.
Oh, yeah.
None of that happens. So still, I'm putting on a dress from a conservative perspective was still,
At the time, that must have been super new and like really, really daring.
And especially in Hong Kong, you see, especially doing it as a foreigner in Hong Kong, there's too many points of removal from their kind of known experience for if you're a casting person or something, right? So, so therefore, but it's an interesting thing because it went from, as the world changed, and I did Ladybeard, and Ladybeard worked, and at the same time, the rest of the world changed. It then became, it went from, well, don't be the dude who put on the dress to the dude who put on the dress. It was a really interesting dynamic, actually, and watching the world kind of shift. That's one of the very interesting things that happens when you do something like this. You have your journey of you moving through time and space, and then the world moves around you as you move. That has been something to witness.
So you touched down in Japan.
Yeah.
So we're opening now the next chapter. It's the Ladybeard in Japan chapter.
Oh!
Woo!
Oh, the Ladybeard. Oh,
we fought battles. We fought battles in the school. We fought battles in the martial arts gyms. We fought battles in Hong Kong in more martial arts. We fought battles in getting a job as an actor. We fought battles to become a Ladybeard. You are now a Ladybeard. You're going on tour. You come to Japan. You decided, I stay here. I'll come here again.
Yeah, and then you battle moving to Japan and figuring out Japan when it's so infinitely different from everything I'd ever experienced before. Because one of the interesting things as well, I'd lived in Hong Kong already, so I had already lived overseas. And a lot of the things I looked at in Japan, I looked at and I said, I can see certain similarities between Japanese culture and Hong Kong culture. Okay, I bumped the mic, I'm sorry. I think I can attempt Japan. But of course, now that I've been in Japan 10 years, I understand those cultures are so remarkably different. And I really, didn't understand Japan at all when I first got here.
So you touched down. What did you do? Like, how did you find your way around? Like, you had everything set up. You left an established life behind you.
Yep.
for coming to Japan. That's a big sacrifice because you just found yourself again.
Yep.
You just found your income. You just found a means of being Ladybeard.
Yep.
You just went on tour, and then you gave that all kind of up in order to come to Japan. How? Why? What?
Well, I mean, I hadn't really found myself because I found myself and then the financial crisis took myself away again. You know what I'm saying? So therefore, I had to kind of find something else.
Yeah, reinvent
so
yourself.
I had to reinvent. So it was either I stay there and do it, or I go to a different environment and do it. So I had to do something. So yeah, it's hard, man. It's really hard moving countries, especially when you keep moving countries.
Oh,
If you-
gosh,
If you
yeah.
move once and then stay there, then all right, cool. There's your home, and then there's the other place, the new home. When you keep moving, you always have to think, what's the place I'm in now, and how do these people think, as opposed to the last people, you know? Came to Japan, had a few contacts here from my tour, got in touch with them. A few of them were in, rock and roll and so forth. And so I kind of spoke to them about how do I get into things. And they kind of gave various bits of advice. The wrestling, I kind of hustled the wrestling company that I wanted to work at through various contacts, and contacts introduced you to people, and they introduced you to people. And so got introduced to the wrestling company I wanted to work at through a series of interesting stories. And then I teamed up. I got introduced to this woman who was a professional photographer specializing in cross-dressers.
Oh, okay.
So she wanted to take my photograph, and so she did. And she put the photos on the internet, and they went viral.
Hey.
And this was the beginning of the real kind of brrrr, when I bumped the mic again. I'm so sorry, when it spiraled up.
Right. So it is like working hard, but also trying to get the right contacts, and then saying yes to opportunities.
Yeah. And also, I'd say, if Ladybeard gives some career and life advice, it's one of the things which, if I could do it again, I would not necessarily change, but this is one of the things that I would kind of check myself on, is going through it, I had to be, this whole Ladybeard thing was so unlikely to work out when I began it, right? It was just me. I didn't have any help, didn't have any money to put into it. It was just me working terrible day jobs, living on ramen or whatever cheap food I could get, and then saving what I could to put into the project, right? So it was all kind of, bootstrapped together. There was no help or anything. Out of all the people around me, like one had faith in me. Like everyone thought this was a moronic idea.
Was
it
that
wasn't
still,
going to work.
sorry, back in Hong Kong or in Japan?
In Hong Kong, my friend based there and whatnot. So it meant that the whole time, because I had 2 years between when I did my Japan tour and then moving to Japan, right? So every day of those 2 years, I had to keep reminding myself of the tour and saying, no, I know this project has the potential. I've seen the demand, and none of these people have seen the demand. I know, and I had to keep reminding myself and keep painting a kind of a future vision of what I was aiming for, right? So now, if I could go back and change things again, once I got to Japan, I would have been more open to reaching the goal in a different way from the way I imagined it, because you have to approach things with a plan, but then, that plan might not necessarily be the one that takes you to your goal.
Okay.
Whilst you're going, okay, this step, something might open up here, which takes you to a totally different direction, but then that brings you closer to your goal anyway. So Ladybeard's advice is, whilst your planning is essential, and making a plan and following the plan is essential, remain open-minded to the other possibilities as they appear.
So again, what brings us to the yes man kind of mindset. If there's another opportunity, even though it might not be directly what you thought you might want, just give it a go.
I think so. I think just try to, remain open-minded and flexibly minded. It's hard because on the one level, you don't want to get distracted. You want to remember what you're there for. You want to remember what you're trying to achieve. And you keep, focusing on the goal and forging towards the goal every day. But you also want to try and remain open to the idea that there's, more than one way to skin a cat, and there's more than one path to that goal potentially. This is very serious, isn't it?
It was a very, very
deeply
intriguing and serious episode.
seriously.
But I just find it really interesting to hear about how Ladybeard was forged, because it's so easy to just see it as, oh, you're just there and you're famous and you're doing tours and all of that. So it's interesting just how much melting and breaking down had to happen to get forged into the persona and the person that you are now.
Yeah. The interesting thing that people don't see is like every day over years, just getting up and just consistent hard work every day, every day.
The workout, the martial arts training, all of
All
that.
of that. But then also when I started the project, I had to do everything myself. So it's me organizing the costumes, me organizing my hair and doing the emails and trying to book things and, you know. The first tour, I remember I got to Osaka and then like the place I was staying at, I get there and the door's locked. And I'm like, what the hell? How do I get in? And I'm like, back in those days, you would ask people to use their phones. You ask strangers if you could use their phones. Do you remember that?
Oh gosh, yeah.
Yeah. No, we didn't have smartphones yet. So if you need to make a phone call, you would ask a stranger, "Can I use your phone, please?" And Japanese people are so lovely. The strangers, they're like, "Yeah, sure." So I get to this guest house. I'm like, "This place is locked. This contact number, I don't have a phone to call them with." Some random lady on the street, I ask her, "Can I use your phone, please?" Put in this number I had written down. No answer. I'm like, God damn, what am I gonna do? Round the corner at a konbini, having my sandwich or whatever, going, all right. Just looking at some big, expensive-looking hotel, going, oh, I guess I'm going to have to just spend the money to stay the night there. Then, randomly, that lady, whose phone I had borrowed, she comes to the konbini, she's like, oh, you! The person you were calling called back! Here! And so she redials or whatever, and it's the person with the guest house saying, yeah, sorry, I had to leave, emergency or something, come back now and I'll let you in. So...
Gosh, that's so sweet.
Oh, man, but it's
Lifesaver.
these awful moments like that when I'm there with my two gigantic suitcases. I'm all disgusting and sweating and whatnot. You get to the place where you think you're staying the night. Finally, you can relax. No, you can't. There's no one there. And you're like, oh, at a convenience store, eating a sandwich, going, I'm just going to have to spend the money I don't have on this hotel, a big old hotel. And then it pops up and now you can go back to your cheap guest house. So it's interesting because when you get your moment of fame, like when the photos of me went viral or when like my first hit song Nippon Manju happened, the image people have is that you fell out of the sky.
Yeah, a lot of people think that, yeah.
They don't see that you've been busting your ass in anonymity for 10 years or something.
Yeah, like there's a lot of grind. Like, it's interesting to see that Ladybeard wasn't just like in agency going like, oh, you go do this. It was like very handmade then. So you literally, you decided to go with Ladybeard, even against controversies. And then you were the one who answered the emails and booked the things and did the costumes, all of that. So there wasn't a big agenda or anything behind it. The start was all handmade.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was hard, man. We were doing things in Hong Kong as well. The Hong Kong Wrestling Federation was this tiny little backyard operation. So it was things like I did this match. We had this match plan. We had a whole storyline leading up to it over several months. I included the storyline in the music shows as well. All of that was self-produced. We had this big match when we're putting each other through like tables and like wooden pallets and things like this. We had to go and make all the tables and the wooden pallets.
Wow.
So yeah, it's just every day getting up and grinding. But then people just see the kind of the viral moment. They go, look at this crazy character! They don't see any of that, right? Now, they shouldn't. That's not the audience's job to see that.
I guess so.
Until this, like 10 years later, when you tell the story in depth, right? But that's one of the interesting things that...
I've brought to you. Yeah. I brought you here. Any memorable moments you would like to share with us?
I mean, the memorable moment was when those first set of photos first went viral on the Japanese internet.
What were you wearing? Was that your Chun-Li? What was it?
No, it was pre-Chun-Li. There was my wrestling bikini, some of those. There was Meido Fuku, some of those. There was some Seira Fuku.
Yay, sailor.
Some of them, yeah. And there was some photos of me with Seira Fuku Oji-san as well. In
Oh,
Harajuku.
yeah, the sailor for Koji-san.
Yeah. So when they originally went viral, that was actually the best moment because that was, at that point, I'd already been doing Ladybeard for a good 4 or 5 years or something. And like I say, I'd just been by myself, just grinding it out, constantly staying focused on, no, come on, it's going to work, and just having faith. So then when that did finally go viral, it was like, oh, I was right. You know, like I wasn't fooling myself.
Yep.
And it actually has worked out.
You knew Ladybeard was going to do well.
Yeah. So that was the greatest moment because it was like this whole time I haven't just been wasting my time. I haven't been doing all this for nothing. It actually has resonated the way that I thought it would.
How many years of Ladybeard as such, like cross-dressing and being you, until it actually went like viral? How many years were in between and where you were just grinding?
I mean, I guess it depends where you start. From when I That's okay. The end of 2008 was when the financial crisis happened. I guess partway through 2009 was when I said, all right, this Ladybeard thing, this is the vehicle I'm going to pursue. And then about halfway through 2014 was when I kind of blew up on the internet, or started 2014. So what's that? It's a 9 to 14, a good 5 years of grind.
Yeah, 5 years of grind, and you believed in yourself, and here you are.
5 years of grind of like ridiculous things, going and working these day jobs that I really didn't want to do, and just living as cheaply as possible in these awful places in Hong Kong, just the cheapest rent you could possibly get, so that all the money can be funneled back into the project and whatnot. At one point, I remember before I went on either the Japan tour or the Taiwan tour, my tiny little apartment. The apartment was about half the size of this room, and the whole thing is it looked like a clown had been shot in there. There's just stuff everywhere. There's dresses, and there's like all these props I used for the show.
Probably.
Or just nonsense everywhere, right? I got a photo of it somewhere. It looks ridiculous. But and I have to like climb over all the Ladybeard stuff to get to my bed, which was half covered in Ladybeard stuff as well. And just... Oh, absurd. Romantic stories now. Romantic stories all these years later. But at the time, you're like, oh, God.
Yeah, now you know it was all worth it.
Yeah, exactly right. Now it's worth it.
Tell us about some cool TV appearances and stuff that you've done then now here in Japan.
Cool TV appearance, like
TV
cool
or
events
matches
and whatnot.
Or shows, anything that you're like memorable Ladybeard moments.
Memorable Ladybeard. I mean, one of the most memorable ones was the first time I wrestled at Ryogoku Kokugikan.
Ooh,
So that's
a big
that's
one.
the big international, the big national sumo stadium in Tokyo. So that was, I think, an audience of 10,000 people. So at the time, that was the biggest audience I'd ever had.
Can't even count to 10,000.
You can in Japanese though, so.
Yeah.
So that was pretty cool. Obviously when Nippon Manju went viral, that was cool because now it's the whole world looking at me as opposed to just Japan. And then going and doing big anime conventions overseas, those have actually been really awesome. There was a moment in 2015, I think, when we did Hyper Japan in London. And I got a British friend who was also a wrestler, and he had known me in Hong Kong. And so interesting because he came to Hyper Japan, and the audience was, I don't know, 1,000 or so people, maybe 2,000 something. And it's interesting because we're hanging out a few days later in London, and he goes, it's so interesting because I've gone from seeing you performing in Hong Kong in front of about 5 people, and now you're performing in front of 2,000 of them. And that's something very interesting and amazing to watch. So, yeah, those are kind of the really beautiful moments when someone else who has not seen that daily grind can go, do you remember 3 years ago when you were doing this? And you're like, oh, yes, I do remember. You're right. Yeah. Those are some of the most beautiful moments, I'd say.
Ryogoku-kan!
Yeah, that was great.
That is a big stage.
That was great. I was on TV I did Downtown Deluxe, which is like the biggest TV show in the country, so that was quite cool.
What do you do for that? What do you do for Downtown Deluxe?
I was on there with the old group, so it was me, and we did whatever pop groups do. They have the little feature about us, and it's variety TV, and they make fun of you and whatnot, and that's what it is.
All right, so you come around the entertainment scene in Japan quite a lot. I could tell actually the very first time we were working together here on the studio, you're just like, okay, shall I count us in? You're like, you were all like so experienced already in everything. You're like, okay, I do the count and then we start. So there is so much professionalism behind Ladybeard that most of you can't even grasp how much there is. The professionalism, hard work, dedication. There's so much there and probably lots and lots more. So if you would like to find out more about Ladybeard, where can we find you on the internet?
Just quickly, by the way, I love being interviewed by Cathy Cat. This is fantastic. You are such a giving interviewer, and you are you give me so much praise. It's really beautiful, and you do that in public, which I appreciate very much. When we do the Cathy Cat episode, we are going to dig deep on Cathy Cat, and we're going to find out
come up sometime.
all about Cathy Cat's amazing journey as well.
Thank you. I was going to lead straight into your social media so you can tell more of your story maybe your
I mean,
new
it's
social media?
if they haven't figured it out by now, we're episode 45 or something of Cat with Beard. I don't know what they're doing here.
I mean, hey, your Instagram is gold. If you want to
you.
see some of those really cool cosplay pictures and just the random reels that you've recently been making with your group with Babybeard, it's just check it out.
And also make sure you check out Japan Railway Journeys and Cathy Cat _TV.
We're now on episode 44. It's Japan Railway Journal.
That's what I said.
Just keep saying journeys.
Did I say journey?
Yes,
I thought I said journal.
It's a different program.
Did I actually say journey?
Yes,
I'm so sorry. Japan Railway Journal. It's only a 2-letter difference. I'm so sorry. Really? Did I say? I thought I said journal. Did I say journey? I say journal. I said journey. I'm so sorry. Japan Railway Journal, starring Cathy Cat on NHK World, and Cathy Cat _TV on the internet. She streams on Twitch, and she's on the Instagram, the Twitter, the Facebooky.
Not Facebook now.
The other ones.
Twitter, Twitch, Instagram, YouTube.
And she's an excellent interviewer and the host of this podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
This is fantastic. You're an excellent interviewer. This has been fantastic.
I mean, this is a really wholesome episode now.
It's been really wholesome. But look how serious I've gotten through this whole thing. I've been sitting
serious,
here.
But I find it so interesting just how much hard work went into Ladybeard. I think loads of people don't even know how much hard work went into Ladybeard. That apartment and all of that with like just the rats and the rats around the apartment and stuff like that. So that's
a homeless man, yeah.
You didn't fall from the sky. You literally had to grind 5 years to get to where you are.
Driven by pain and darkness.
But hey,
pushed forward by it.
Pushed forward by it. You were forged in the fire, but you came out all right. Mentioning also coming out all right, you're going to Chile soon.
My group Babybeard, we're coming to Chile. We're going to be in Santiago, April 14, 15, 16 at the Movie Star Arena for Gamers City. Come and watch us perform live. Please, if you're in Chile or if you're not in Chile and you want to come to Chile, it's going to be wonderful. Please, thank you.
I would love to see that. Sounds amazing. It's
Oh,
like
it's
an
going to be awesome.
thing as well.
It's a huge esports event, I believe. Huge esports event, yeah. Huge esports event. It's in their stadium. It's in the stadium for crying out loud. It's going to be amazing.
It's going to be amazing. So go check out Babybeard.
Maybe live in Chile.
And your other social media you want to plug?
Ladybeard _Japan is the internet. Babybeard _Japan is the group's internet. Come and watch us on the internet.
Check out the internet. Cathy Cat on the TV. You already plugged me.
Done your internet.
But check out our YouTube channel.
Yeah, hey, and check out our YouTube channel. Leave us a comment. Write us a message.
Leave us a comments. Yeah, write us some cool comments. Yeah, questions.
Feedback.
Well, how did this episode move you? I mean, this is a very emotionally moving episode. I'm sure you guys have got something to say about that. Post it in the comments down below.
I've not presented the way I normally present in this episode.
It's just really nice to like peel a little bit behind the layer and see how much hard work goes into Ladybeard.
What is interesting, you see, is normally when I have to go through the Ladybeard story, it's normally on like a variety TV, or it's the very kind of introductory bit of an interview, and it's like, for those who don't know, tell us who you are and how you got here. So I've got like 20 seconds to condense all that darkness that we just went through, and also that darkness was relatively condensed. We skipped out most of the detail, right? So it's so normally I just go through It's like, whoa, okay, and then we go on to the next thing, right? So, but then when I actually go into the story, I got to go back and remember all the, oh yeah, then this happened. Oh yeah, then this happened. Oh, that's right. And then this happened. Oh yeah, then he did that. Oh yeah, then that happened. So,
but hey, now we've summoned up quite a lot of the fires you had to walk through.
I remember when I was doing right before the first Japan tour, because I had to get all these new songs made. I had to get Japanese songs made. I was singing Cantonese and Mandarin songs up until that point. And then like 2 weeks before the tour, my musician who was making the tracks for me, because I can't play guitar or anything, so I had to hire someone to make tracks for me. His computer broke and we just lost all the data.
No.
And I'm like,
there's a lot of
I've got
fire.
all these shows booked, which was really difficult to do from elsewhere without being able to speak Japanese. It was so hard, but I finally got these bookings organized, and I had hotels booked, and I had flights, and I was like, okay, cool, I've only got 14 days.
And then
I need to make sure. And
PC dies.
Then all the whole concept upon which the tour relies is gone. Like, bro, oh mate.
What did you do? How did you retrieve it?
I had to get a new musician and work fast to hit the deadline.
And make it on time, and you did.
We
Yeah.
did. Yeah.
Well, Ladybeard didn't fall out of the size guide. Lots and lots and lots of hard work, dedication, not giving up, and discipline. That's the word I was going to say. A lot of discipline.
I'm knackered. Look how knackered I am from going
you're
through
like,
this. I'm
"Oof," so I
knackered,
was
mate.
like,
Just
"Oof."
going through the memories.
Sure, let's get a quick break in.
Let's end this episode. Thank you for watching Cat with Beard Experience, and next time I'll be happier.
Yeah, look good. Leave some cool comments in the YouTube channel, or check out also our Twitter if you want to be updated when a new episode comes out as a podcast or on YouTube. Thank you so much for sharing.
We'll see you again for probably a more less in depth and a more kawaii
Upbeat
and genki
Kawaii and
episode
Genki episode
of
of
Cat
Cat
with
with Beard.